Hello everybody, welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news on what has been a monumentous day. What a day to unpack, so much to talk about, and we will do that and you will have your opinions as well. But I don't think when I woke up this morning, I thought we would have the day that we've had. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Look, let's get into it because so many people have spoken. I think there's so much crap been spoken, by the way, as well. But I think the one thing that I would say, there's three things I want to sort of start off with. Double D has just said, do not listen to the spin about what's best for the team coming from the idiots running the club. They want us to doubt ourselves about our opinions of them. They are businessmen with egos that are sitting on their brains instead of using them. Oh, Double D, can I just say, what a super chat. What a way to start the show. You're absolutely spot on. Legend, straight away. I'll leave the show to you, I think. We're going to talk about HelloFresh. We've got a very good offer for you, and we're going to unpack that in a moment. But just to run a headline here, there's a few things I want to talk about. I think we've seen the end of an era with Amorim going as well, which people haven't really realised what that is. We'll talk about that. The manager spin about Zidane and Maresca and everything like that is distraction. The leaks from the dressing room are a disgrace, which we'll talk about, but I'm not surprised. Return from injury from certain players, what a surprise. But first and foremost, I think the thing I find absolutely amazing, and I suppose it's an insight into the world that we live in and have lived in for a long time, is that the mainstream can completely and utterly sweep the truth under the carpet. I am stunned by the amount of people that think Amorim's been sacked for bad results. Like I turn the TV on, I listen to some ex-players, I'm listening to the pundits, the press, and they're talking about as if he's been sacked for bad results. And I think it's really important just to remember, he didn't get sacked for bad results. He got sacked for calling out Wilcox and INEOS for being shit. And it's already being spun in that way. He didn't get sacked for bad results. And I can see United fans talking about, well, the win ratio wasn't good enough, and it wasn't INEOS that were making him pick these players. They didn't sack him because of that. They sacked him because he called them out. And it's amazing to me that has been completely and utterly hidden. But look, loads to get into. Maybe you agree with me, maybe you don't about that. But what we will not stop doing is bringing you good offers, and today's show is brought to you by HelloFresh. It's a new year. We're bringing the United Stand community a winning game plan for dinner. No stress, no hassle, mealtime sorted, quick, convenient, straight to your door. We've got a fantastic offer for you. If you don't know what HelloFresh is, it's a top signing, especially in this new year, January. Maybe you're fed up of all the stodge and food that you've been eating over Christmas. Maybe you want to get a bit healthy. You can go onto the website, HelloFresh. You can pick out your meals there. You get things like this, 21-day aged rump steak and mustard cream sauce. You get the picture, literally. You get the ingredients, and then you get the method there. All your nutritional value as well. All delivered to your door in a box. Pick your 4 meals. I've got a fantastic offer there, but you can get amazing things, high protein, loads of different things, rapid recipes, everything you need in the box, all the ingredients, no trips to the supermarkets, healthy habits in 26. And you can get things like roasted duck breast and red currant stew. You can get roasted chicken thighs and cheesy leek sauce with spinach and potatoes. Classic lamb shepherd's pie with mashed potato and green beans. Lovely stuff, and all delivered to your door. But the best bit is our exclusive offer. You can get 50% off with the code 50United. This is amazing. 50United is the code. You get 50% off your first box and 20% off your next 4 boxes. So if you're feeling a bit down today as a United fan, we've got a bit of a treat for you. 50% off your first box and 20% off the next 4 boxes, plus free treats for 3 months. So amazing offer. Thank you so much to HelloFresh. Links in the description, or scan the QR code next to me and take up that exclusive United Stand offer. That's why it's 50 United, 50% off, delivered to your door. Check it out. Thank you so much to HelloFresh for that. Now, we've unpacked HelloFresh. Well, you will be when you use the offer. Let's unpack today for Manchester United, because Adam says, as a first-time commenter and a long-time watcher, I don't mean to add pressure, but we got to do something. I'd do anything to get these owners out, says Adam. Well, thank you very much for your super chat and your first time there. Donkey says, please take Beth off the show. Why? What's Beth done? She came on in a day off today. I cannot get behind anything this club says or does, says Mike. INEOS cannot be trusted. Wilcox has to go. Who the hell does he think he is? He has never managed or coached anything but that god-awful beard, says Mike. I mean, I can't look. In a professional sense, I can't stand Berrada and I can't stand Wilcox because I cannot stand backstabbers. I've worked with people in this industry who you give them a chance You listen to them. You go and do things, and then while you're doing that, they're stabbing you in the back. So I've got no time for those sorts of people in my professional life, personal life at all. They are professional scum. And, unfortunately, they're in our club, aren't they? INEOS had 7 managers in 7 years at Nice, says Dumb. And for the first time, Mark has actually spoken facts. He said Amorim was sacked for what he said yesterday. For once, Mark is correct. Look, let's get into it. We've got a lot of people getting comments in already. We will go through that. United77 says, I've been watching all the Man United content creators and everyone seems to be doubting INEOS's judgment, which is the only positive in this debacle. Well, look, we started doing it on Monday. New Year's Eve. We started pointing the finger at the ownership on New Year's Eve. In 4 days, there has been a lot of change and hopefully that will continue. I got told this afternoon, and I can't say from where because it's a good source, again, like I got told a month ago about Fletcher taking over from Amorim, and like we got told before about Delap and Semenyo and everything like that, I got told Berrada is in the shit. And now I don't know what that means, but I got told Berrada is in the shit. Not Wilcox, Berrada. So I don't know whether that leads to him losing his job or not, but Berrada was the one I was told is in the shit. So we'll have to wait and see if that develops. I don't think it will. I think we've kept the shit and got rid of somebody that was speaking the truth. But I do think it's really important to go through a lot of the stuff that's been said today. And, I think some of the stuff that's really bothered me the most and I find incredible the most is the spin. Because I've seen a lot of people falling for the spin, getting angry about the spin, and I've sort of just sat there with a smile on my face today. Because obviously I was live doing the 10 o'clock show this morning, and in the first 30 seconds, all you good people are going sacked. Ornstein Bomber, and I'm just started the show going, will he be sacked this week after it? And it was live on air. That was, not many people were live on air when that happened. So you got the, I know I was throwing up behind the chair, mocking throwing up. I wasn't actually sick. But that was my genuine reaction. People saying you're fake, this, that, and the other. When you're live and that happens, you saw my genuine reaction and you saw where my anger was. And my anger was at the board and the owners. And you can't fake that. I didn't know that was going to happen. And that's where I am. So if you don't like that, then let's debate that. But my point is, I've had enough of the ownership. I've had enough of the board. I think they're clueless. I genuinely think I'd do a better job than them, and I think you'd do a better job as well. They're bloody atrocious. And the best thing Sir Jim Radcliffe can do is walk. And the best thing Berrada and Wilcox can do is resign and leave the Glazers, up the creek without a paddle. The club needs to disintegrate in this current board and ownership thing because it's a shit show. They've lied to us. They're liars. They're spinners. There's nothing they can say that can make me trust them, which is why I find it really funny when I see manager polls, next manager polls. The guy was only sacked at 10 o'clock this morning and people are getting excited about manager polls. And I'm like, look, we did one on Beth's show. There was a manager poll. Everybody's entitled to their opinion, but I'm entitled to mine. And on the United stand, people have different opinions, so I'm not bothered. Ricky doesn't like Bruno. It's absolutely fine. But I can't believe how disrespectful it is to be getting excited about manager polls when we had a different manager at 9 o'clock this morning, and the way he's been treated by this ownership is appalling. I think there should be bloody. I think there should be protests before there's bloody manager polls because you know what? It's like voting for your own execution. This is the next manager's screwed before he even comes in. And I've seen Zidane, Maresca, Pochettino, Tuchel, Emery, all these managers that we will not get. And people aren't, it's the distraction tactics of the spin that the club put out. Have you heard the stuff that's come out from certain journalists about Amorim in the dressing room, fluffing his lines and, changing the formation last minute? Who's giving him this stuff? These are quotes from the dressing room. Who's giving him this stuff? What wanker in the dressing room is doing that? What wanker in that football club is sticking the knife in on somebody who's already dead? It's atrocious behaviour. I cannot get my hat on how classless this club has become over the last 20 years. It's got no moral code. It's got no standards. The guy's been sacked. You don't need to then get on to old Pratthurst and start giving that twat shit. You don't need to do that. we've seen so many managers sacked, and we've seen so many leaks from the dressing room. What do these players actually think the fans are going to do when they read an article from the client journalist? I mean, look, there is no journalist around Man United that hasn't got their, trousers down for Manchester United to give them a bit of a slap. It's like, you've been naughty, say something good. I don't trust anything that comes out of any of the journalists, and I don't trust anything that comes out of the club anymore. So Amorim's gone. That's sad, happy, whatever. But I don't need to spend the day reading stuff about, well, this is what I'm sort of talking about. It's like, all I've read today is people going, well, the back five wasn't working. What was the other one? Oh, not picking Mainu. Xerxes had enough. In his last training session, he was smiling. And I'm sort of like going, what is the relevance of this if it's not to make us hate Amorim and like the owners? Like, all this stuff that's coming out about, he fell out with Wilcox at Christmas, and in the dressing room for the Wolves game, he seemed flustered. And I'm like, well, why is all this coming out? He's been sacked. Why are we now hearing about all this? Because it's spin. It's trying to make you dislike Amorim and like the board. But I'll take you back to the start of the show, everybody. Even if he did fluff his lines in the Wolves game, even if he decided to go with a back five instead of a back four, even if he did do all that, why is it coming out now? You didn't sack him because of that. You didn't sack him because of his formation. You didn't sack him because of his results. You don't even know what you're doing now you have sacked him. You had no fucking idea you were going to sack him, and we can tell that by the fact that Darren Fletcher's got the job. You didn't sack him because of results. You didn't sack him because of dressing room leaks. You didn't sack him because of the back five. And you didn't sack him because you had a plan. You sacked him because in the press conference he said you're shit. He undermined you publicly, so you sacked him. You didn't sack him on results. So why are we getting leaks about, he was doing this, he was doing that. He did that as well. He didn't like that. He shouted at him. He fell out with Mainu. He did this and that. You weren't sacking him for any of that. You sacked him because he called you shit. So, as I said, we live in a world now where the story can be deflected to make other people look good. And that's all that we're getting now. I've seen United fans that I like on social media going, well, with that win ratio, he should be sacked. We didn't play well against Leeds, he should be sacked. And I'm like, hold on a minute, have a word with yourself. Do you not realise why they sacked him? There is zero correlation between the results and his sacking. Zero. They didn't do it because of that. And it's actually there for you factually why they did it. Listen to Romano, listen to Ornstein, listen to Ben Jacobs. They didn't sack him because of results. They sacked him because he lost it in his press conference and in the post-match press conference against Leeds. He basically came out and said Wilcox is shit at his job, INEOS is shit, and they sacked him for it. That's what they did. It wasn't about results. And yet we've got people out there going, well, if you do bad at your job, you get sacked. Maybe in some clubs, but not here. He got sacked for shouting out. So I find that really strange because it's making people think INEOS did something you would have done. Look, let me say Double D, I'm going to use you as an example. I don't know what your stance was. If Double D was our owner and he said, I've sacked Amorim because the results are unacceptable and I don't like the football, then we'd all respect that. But he didn't do that. They sacked him because the manager said Double D shit. So, you can't, what I'm saying is you've got to be very careful about thinking INEOS did something good because they didn't. They might have done what you wanted, but they didn't do it for the reason you wanted. Your reason to sack Amorim is valid. Low win ratio, not good football. That's a good reason to sack him, but they weren't going to do it for that because they're incompetent. They did it because he called them shit. And they appointed him in the first place. So, look, I think it's very important that people remember. I mean, I did a tweet today. I didn't think it was going to bang, and it did. And it literally was that. It's stunning how many people think the club sacked him for bad results, when in fact they sacked him because he called them shit. That's what the truth is. And if it was based on results, as Josh said, I think he would have gone against Everton. As for all the manager spin, it's too soon for me. It's too soon for me. I mean, I respect the fact that some of you wanted Amorim gone no matter what. and you've thought long and hard about who you want to come in next. So I'm not saying we shouldn't talk about the next manager because it's natural. One manager's gone, you have to move on, you know. But for me, I have got no appetite for it, and I'll tell you, I'll explain why. Amorim clearly had some power. Amorim had some power because it wasn't as strong as what Ten Hag had, but he had power on the board. He had a say in transfers. He could be overruled, but he could also overrule other people if he had enough people on side. So Ruben Amorim did have a say in transfers. I think what I've heard nobody report this, and I've heard nobody discuss this, but the reason Amorim has been sacked is because he had power. Man United are going to remove that power from now on. We've just seen the end of an era. We are no longer going to have a head coach, manager, whatever you want to call it. They're just going to be a coach. They're not going to have a say on signings anymore because United are going to remove the possibility of this happening again. The reason they've had to pay Amorim £15 million today because he had power. They will remove it. So anybody who's talking about Conte or Emery or Zidane or Pochettino or any experienced coach, forget it. We're following the Chelsea model now. We're going for hands on the knees. Oh, thank you for giving me the job. I'll do anything, people. You know, we're going for the car park sweeper. You know, we are not going to go for a manager now, or a manager that we want is not going to sign this contract. That no decent manager is going to sign a contract where you've got no say in transfers, you've got no say at all, you're just a coach. Because United are going to remove that, because if they don't remove that, the next manager comes in and goes, well, I'll do what Amorim did then. They're not giving me what I want. I'll do the interview and I'll get the money. So this world of Zidane and Emery and Pochettino and all these experienced coaches, forget it. Forget it. And I don't want to depress you tonight. I'm just being real. We're not going to get a coach like that. I would say McKenna, maybe Maresca, although he might not fancy it after what happened at Chelsea. Carrick, maybe Fletcher. These types of people are what we're going to go for because, you know, I don't blame Amorim for doing what he's done, but he's ultimately just closed the door for the next guy. They're never going to take a guy now that's going to just be a coach. And United will never put themselves in a situation like this again. So we've seen the end of an era in relation to managers or head coaches. We're just going to end up with a coach now. We're just going to end up with a guy that basically does as he's told. And Wilcox will be in charge of all of that. So, you know, it's total spin. But you know what? You should be, what's the word? You should be intelligent enough now to understand that United will spin you. If you lose a game, you're signing Ronaldo the next day. If you lose a game, we're signing bloody, you know, Vidal the next day. It's been going on for years. And if you sack a manager and it's your fault, link us to Zidane. You know, just do whatever you can to detract our fan base from the truth that we are shit. So yeah, we don't mind being linked to Zidane. Ooh, love it. Yeah, what about a bit of Emery and they'll link us to everybody to distract you. But the reality is we're not going to appoint a manager. We're not going to appoint a head coach. We're going to appoint a coach. We're going to appoint a puppet so we don't put ourselves in this situation again, so that Wilcox and co can do what they like on transfers and formations and tell the coach to do what they do. Amorim's going to be the last powerful manager we had. They're going to make them puppets, basically. And to do that, you are going to have to go for somebody that's just grateful and inexperienced. And that's where we'll end up. And I've not really heard anybody talk about that, which is a little bit strange. But look, lots to go through in relation to the day. Do get your comments in as well. Look, I saw what Gary Neville said, and I think he's had a lot of shit, and I'm more than happy to jump in and give him some. But what he said is that Manchester United shouldn't change for anyone. That Man United need to bring an experienced coach in who plays the United way, risk-taking football. I completely agree with him on that, by the way. Man United shouldn't change for anyone. We should look at what we stand for. Sir Matt Busby, Sir Alex Ferguson. We should look at that style of football. We should look at that type of coach. But go back to what I said a minute ago. Forget it. We're not going to get that style anymore because we're not, you know, the style will be dictated to by Jason Wilcox and Faval and, you know, Omar Berrada and Sir Jim Radcliffe. We're not going to get that experienced coach. It's not going to happen. We're not going to get experience. It will be inexperienced puppet. I guarantee it. And I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being, you know, Fletcher's at the wheel or something like that, because I actually think we're about to take a massive step backwards. I really, really do. You know, I've seen people saying, oh, Mainu will play now. I'm sure he will. I've seen people saying, Rashford might come back. I think it'd be a fool to come back for his own good, but maybe he will. But isn't the answer in the clue there? Rashford might come back. Mainoo will come back. We've been here before, haven't we? And I will argue with anybody that not everything that happened under Amorim was bad. I actually felt that some of the stuff we did was needed to happen. And surprise, surprise, things got worse for a bit. Because when you've got a decrepit, crumbling mansion, sometimes you've got to knock it all down to start again. And, I think the removing of people like Garnacho was the right thing to do, to knock it down and build again. But they didn't want to see the project through, so we'll never know whether it would have worked or not. The reality is, if we beat Burnley, if Amorim had beaten Burnley on Wednesday, we'd be 4th in the league. And nobody can spin that one. If Amorim had beaten Burnley on Wednesday, we'd be 4th in the league. Because Liverpool don't play till Thursday, and they're playing Arsenal. So we'd be 4th in the league if we'd beaten Burnley on Wednesday. And people are acting like we're 15th. Now, I know the football's not been great. And I know we've dropped a lot of points. But if we beat Burnley on Wednesday, we're 4th in the league. So, it's amazing to me. It's absolutely amazing. But the cycle does continue. And look, we've got to shout out, while some knobheads in that dressing room are leaking to the press, I think there was sincerity from Dalot, Mason Mount, Ahmad, Bruno, De Ligt and Maguire, who have all posted. And other players may have posted now. But, I think it's always notable the players that don't post. We saw it with Ten Hag, and I think it's classless. I do. I think it's classless to put yourself above the club. I think if I was a player that had been treated badly by Amorim, I'd still put the post out because it shows humility, it shows class, and it shows, the ability to be the bigger person. But, I think for Harry Maguire, I wouldn't have expected anything different. The system suited Harry Maguire. 3 at the back, and I thought at times he was quite good in it. I think Harry Maguire had a good relationship with him. Bruno obviously had a good relationship with him. I think De Ligt did as well. Obviously Dalot did. And Ahmad was a player that he valued, and obviously Mason Mount. So, those players, I don't think they're going to have a problem with Amorim, and I think they were genuinely sad to see him go. Obviously, there's going to be other players that aren't going to be sad to see him go, and they've got an opportunity now. And I'll put my hands up and say I'm excited to see Mainoo getting minutes. He's going to have a lot of eyes on him. I think he's good enough. I think he needs to stop and move away from family members who are making it an episode of Coronation Street. We're Manchester United. I'm tired of being laughed at. I'm tired of the club embarrassing us. I want to see some professionalism. So he's got a chance now. I don't know whether we'll do anything in the January transfer window. I still think that is going to get buried like a cat buries a shit, but we still need to do something in the January transfer window. We probably won't. And I think as well, we've got to map out what's going to happen from here. And, I haven't even had time to decide how I feel. I do not feel optimistic. I know that. I do think we're going to be back here again very, very soon. And I do think that the club is in perilous danger over the next few years because I don't know how anybody can trust any plan we ever try and... even if you did bring in Emery and the club said we're going to back him and build something, you wouldn't be surprised if he was gone in 6 months. So I don't think there's any trust. I think when the trust is gone, you're done. In any relationship, the trust is gone, you're done. Do you trust these owners now? Do you trust Wilcox now? The players we don't trust anyway, but there's just no trust between Manchester United and their fans. It's gone. It's absolutely gone. And anybody who tries and justifies that the trust can be won back, how do you win the trust back when you've lied on key things over so many months? So I think that looking at the next... is there anything more depressing than writing another season off as well? I think that's the worst thing. I suppose it depends how you look at it. If you want Fletcher to get the job and he wins the next 2 games, then it's Fletcher at the wheel time, isn't it? And people can get behind that. If it's Carrick after Fletcher and he does quite well, people are going to want Carrick to get the job. You know what I think? I've seen this fucking movie before. And I've got to be honest, this time, no matter what, can we get to the summer and actually appoint a proper manager? Please do not give it the interim, no matter what they do. Do not write a song about a bus. Please, Rio Ferdinand, do not get a bloody fake contract out and start saying give him a lifetime contract. Can we learn from past mistakes, please, just once? I don't care if Carrick goes on a 10-game winning run. Do not give him the job. Please do not give him the job. Don't get Ollie back. Please do not go down that road. Please don't. But I sense we probably will. Because if there's one thing that's consistent about this club, it's the consistent ability to make bad decisions. So I think, look, the next few months are going to be really hard. They're going to be really hard because I don't think we're suddenly going to become a good team. We still have a shit midfield and we still have shit width. I think we have to become counter-attacking moment team. And we have to try and grind out results enough to get into Europe. Europe's the absolute essential piece. Because I think Amorim would have got Europe. I think we would have finished 6th under Amorim. So I think Europa League would have been fine. We have to get Europe. We're probably not going to spend in January, and we're going to have to do it with an interim. So I think Europe has to be the aim by the end of May. But it's going to be a bumpy ride because it's really hard to get behind something that's interim. You know, the good thing about Ollie was we'd never been there before. He got good results, and people, myself included, started singing Ollie's at the wheel outside Old Trafford. And we went with it. But I'm terrified of that happening this time. So psychologically, we are actually using an interim. And an interim is a hard thing for a fan to deal with because an interim, everybody in life wants certainty, wants vision, wants to believe in something. We can't do that with an interim. It's basically a holding piece, isn't it? So we've got 4 months of that. And then we've got a summer. And this is the tragic thing. We've then got a summer where even if we do wait till the summer to appoint a manager, he can't take the job properly until the back end of July because he won't get to play with the players until the end of July because of the World Cup, which means it's a short transfer window as well. So we've probably just written off next season as well, no matter what we do, because we can't have a pre-season and we won't be able to do much in the window. So yeah, it's really difficult to get excited about anything at the moment. But look, you know, you tell me different. I have to catch up on some of yours. Garnacho liked the sacking tweet. Says, but you know what? On that, who cares? The guy's a knobhead. He's shat all over Man United for months. Why do people care about Garnacho? Chelsea don't. They put him on the bench. I mean, he's a flop. He's a flop at Chelsea. Don't give him any attention. He's not a Man United player. We did well to get £40 million for him. He's crap. Leave him there. And also, as well, he's absolutely, what's the word? We bother him more than he bothers us. You know? It's been exhausting. What would be fun is if you do a video on who was worse, INEOS or Woodward, just as comical relief. Do you think INEOS is worse? Well, INEOS is not Woodward, mate. It's Berrada or Woodward, because Woodward was a CEO. INEOS actually own 30% of the club. Remember how bad Ranić era was? It's dangerous, says Marble. It is. Mainu liked Instagram posts mocking Amorim, says Dara. Well, I don't know whether that's true. I mean, that's just a super chat. I don't know whether it's true. As I said, Mainu needs to grow up and be professional and take the opportunity because I think he's a good player. Fletcher will be class, fueling the bus, ready for the ride, says Raz. Amorim, mate. Says Sam. Mainu back is INEOS new midfield signing again, says Kyle. If Berrada gets sacked, what do you think of David Beckham in the role as CEO? Experience as a club owner, highly respected and knows United. I think he's way too busy to be Man United CEO, Stian. I wouldn't trust this regime to empty the shit out of my cat's litter tray, let alone the crap out of my football club, says Emily. Welcome to the show. Here's a thought, says Mike JW. Did Wilcox load the gun for Amorim to fire by lying and manipulating the situation? Fletcher's kid's on the bench already, says Mike JW. Why can't the United stand be more directly involved with the Red Army events, says GHG. I don't know what those events are. I'm jubilant Amorim's gone, but these INEOS people are some rich, entitled control freaks, says Shahin. Daniel's gifted a membership. Thank you very much. Just on that, by the way, you'll notice that I haven't disrespected people that wanted Amorim out. I understood it, I respected it, and that's absolutely fine. But what I would say to you is, are you not starting to shit yourself a little bit now? Because what you wanted was Amorim out and a better manager. I don't think you're going to get one. I don't think you're going to get a better manager. I think you're going to get a learner driver. I think you're going to get a manager that bows down to Wilcox and has no power. So, you know, I'd be afraid about that. I don't think you're going to get your Conte or your Xavi. I don't think you're going to get your Emery or your Tuchel or your Pochettino. I think you're going to get an inexperienced learner driver with no power. I think that's exactly what's going to happen, because that's exactly what's happened at Chelsea. So, look, you wanted Amorim out. I respect that. But I don't think you're going to get what you want as a replacement. I think things are about to get a lot worse. And I would implore you to say the next manager out as soon as possible. And the one after that, and the one after that. Because I think what we need to do is make this club sink. Because the only way we're going to get these owners out is by sinking the club. And if that means a load of you saying you want the next manager out after 3 games, you go. I'll be there saying, I respect you. You do you. Because why should you, as fans, try and prop this club up anymore on patience and, time? These people are prats. Give them what they deserve, which is instability and lack of patience. Hear, hear. The owners think they're playing EFC manager mode. They want to be manager. United will ever nap manager so long as they are the owners, says Ramaz. And you know what? Part of what I just said there's tongue in cheek. But when you think about it, we can't trust these owners, right? The next manager they bring in, they're going to talk about time, patience, and project. How can you believe that? How can you trust that? You know, I literally had people last week messaging me saying, do a debate with me. Do a debate with me. Let's talk about why we need to get behind the club. They've gone radio silent. And I feel sorry for them, because I think their sincerity was there. You know, they genuinely felt that we needed to get behind the project collectively and give it time. And they've been made to look idiots by the owners who've literally sacked the guy they wanted us to back. So, you know, when it comes to the next guy, we're going to get all this statement of, he's the guy we wanted. You know, we're going to back him. It's a long-term project. And then we're all going to go, you said this about Ten Hag and you sacked him. You said it about Ashworth and you sacked him. And you said it about Amorim and you sacked him. So, you know, like the boy that cries wolf, we're not coming to help you this time. So you know what you can do with your patience? You can piss off. If I watch Man United and this next manager's been here a month and it's crap, I'm going to say, manager out, INEOS out. You know, why should we give patience to an ownership that lies? Why should we pretend it's going to be okay or pray that it's going to be okay? They don't deserve any patience. They have destroyed our trust. Why should we believe anything they're going to say? Will Bruno magically be back for Burnley, says Dimitri. Mate, I'm not having that about Bruno, right? Mainu might be magically back for Burnley, and you can talk about your conspiracy theories if he is. I don't think he will be, by the way. But Bruno would play with a broken leg for Man United and Amorim. Bruno had no issues with Amorim and respected Amorim, and it was Amorim who said that Bruno was going to be back anyway. So let's not try and make out that Bruno's coming back because Amorim's been sacked, because that's not Bruno. That's not fair. Where do we go from here, Mark? Sad day for the club. I really thought we had something positive going on. Player power will return. Wilcox to blame. Also, Beth was shocking today. Typical Manu says, right. What's Beth done wrong? I was watching the show and obviously a massive supporter of Beth and her opinions, even if they're different to mine. I like that. So I don't know. Look, I think Beth was excited about the next manager. And that's fine. As I said, that's fine. And there was a manager poll. And that's fine. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. I just think it's spin. You know, I think you're being spun. I think if you're voting for Glasner and Maresca and Emery and all that lot, if they take the job, they're going to have to be a very watered down version of what they currently are. Because I don't think we're going to get that type of a manager. I think we're going to get a learner driver. Where do we go from here? Ron, anyway, thank you very much. Diego says, Mark, it's over. We were progressing. Who shipped useless players out? We were scoring more. We're close to 4th place. Amorim needed to at least get until the end of the season. This helps no one, says Diego. Well, look, you know what? Again, I would say the same thing again. You can talk about win ratios, which is a negative. You can talk about 3 points off 4th, which is a positive. You can talk about the back the system if you don't like it, which is a negative. You can talk about XG and chances created in the box, which is a positive. But none of those things are relevant because that's not why he was sacked. You need to keep this in your head. He wasn't sacked because of his win ratio. He wasn't sacked because he's 3 points off the Champions League. He wasn't sacked because the team's creating more chances than most. He was sacked because he called out the board. That was it. So Jim is useless. Even INEOS itself is in debt. I think too many people gloss over the way he manages his businesses and it's not great, says Mr. Grigg. How likely can we get matches cancelled from protests in 2026? It might have been easier to do so during COVID. We could use another match postponement. I don't think there's even... Kendrew, I might be wrong, but since the fans ridiculously had a pop at the 58 for doing a protest ahead of the Arsenal game because they thought we'd signed Berrada, which was nearly 6 months ago, I've not heard a whisper or seen a post or anything about any action around unhappiness or protests or getting the Glazers out. So I don't think them sacking Amorim is going to change that. I don't think there's anything in the pipeline at the moment for any of that, and there hasn't been for months. And I don't know why. You'd have to ask them. I don't know. But obviously, we would get behind and support any fan movement that's trying to make change for this football club. Hi, Mark. I'm really disappointed with how fickle the fan base is. We never gave Amorim the tools he deserved, and yet a part of this fan base was after his life. I am gutted, says Karan. I think on a positive in relation to Amorim, and we must report fairly, he was out today with a big smile on his face. Apparently, he left Carrington with his coaching team with a smile on his face. And I wish him all the best because I think he leaves with his head held high and his morals intact. I think a lesser manager would have bitten their tongue, listened to Jason Wilcox, got on with it with no transfers in January, tweaked his system to what Wilcox wanted, and stayed quiet like a good little boy. And I think he didn't. I respect the fact, I don't respect the win ratio, and I don't respect playing Bruno in the midfield, but I respect the fact that that guy was honest with us every week and went out on his sword. And in life, that's quite fair, quite rare. So, you know, he got stabbed in the back as well. He got stabbed in the back, and you know what he did? Instead of going, I'll do what you want, he said, right, there's my shield, there's my sword, let's fucking have it. I'm going out and what? And if he goes to Man City or wherever else, I wish him all the best because I actually think his integrity does come through. Wasn't good enough for Man United, if I'm being completely honest, but may have been good enough. But on the first year, it wasn't good enough. But I would always say I wanted him to get to the end of the season and I wanted him to get back in January before I made my mind up. I felt he was on the pathway to being sacked, but you cannot start a project and then not see it through and then blame it on the person that you're not going to back. It's a mess. But you can't... I mean, Amorim looked okay. He's going to be well recompensed. He will definitely get another job, and I wish him all the best. It's us who are left with the shit. Amorim and Ten Hag were well paid, got good compensation, and have opportunities to go and build themselves elsewhere. We're left with Wilcox and Berrada and Sir Jim and INEOS and the Glazers. Sully says, we were so bad under Amorim, the only way is up. Well, I don't know whether you're being a troll or not. I mean, I actually think you're probably right, but I think we would have beat Burnley anyway with Amorim and we would have been in the top four. So, you know, Champions League football spot in the middle of January, I think, regardless of win ratios, still would have been, you know, improvement. So I think the only way is up is technically correct because I think we will beat Burnley. I think we will beat Brighton and I think we would have beat them anyway. So... you know, the only with a new manager, we can all pretend that it's because of the new manager, but I think that was going to happen anyway. Wilcox has no coaching ability, no tactical awareness, and he wants a coffee boy. So why do we need a coach? If Wilcox is in charge of football, says Mark, I'd give the job to Wilcox. Let's see how the Pratt gets on. Doesn't matter who we get, says Martin. INEOS doomed us. Thank you very much, Martin. Andrew Lloyd says... what's worse for the long-term health of the club? We get beat by Burnley and Brighton and thrashed by City, or we beat Burnley 5-0 and beat Brighton in the FA Cup and play well against City? Well, I want the latter. You know, I always want Man United to win. We need to stay in the Cup, so we need to beat Brighton, and we need to stay in the European spot, so we need to beat Burnley, and I would expect that to happen no matter what. Man City and Arsenal, look, I don't know. I think we're going to get... The ridiculous thing is, right, if I break it down really, really simply, right, the team that Amorim's been using for the last couple of games is a joke, and so is the bench. He's he was about to get Mason Mount, Bruno Fernandes, De Ligt back. Also, in the next few days, we're going to get Ahmad, Mazraoui and Mbeumo back. So we're literally going to get 6 first-teamers back in the next few days. So, of course, we're going to be better. So you can call that a Fletcher madness. You can call it INEOS insight. But we are literally going to get 6 first-team players back very, very soon. So I expect there to be an improvement because I think there was going to be an improvement anyway. What's the obsession with young prospect players? It's like buying shiny new rims and air freshener before you even have a car, says Blue. Jim has no clue about football. He consistently says one thing, then does the opposite. INEOS have blown through 8 managers in 6 years at Nice. It's horrendous, says Catch. Look, I think the good thing about INEOS is we know exactly what they are. I think that there was a lot of spin around them at the start, that they knew what they were doing. I mean, I suspect, I've got no evidence, but I think these people had some sort of relationship with INEOS because it was constant PR for them on X and Twitter, and they've been made to look idiots. I did think the first 2 years they'd do a lot better because there was so many open goals, but they've Timo Wernered it, and they've exposed themselves. I mean, I don't think you could do any worse in your first 2 years, and any goodwill or expertise that they potentially had has been destroyed by utter incompetence. So, you know, I don't think anybody could do a worse job in their first 2 years of being in charge of football. I mean, $500 million on players for managers you've sacked in 18 months. I mean, even the Glazers would say that shit, you know? This time last year, 14th in the league and we're currently 6th. The press conference was definitely the reason. Hopefully fans make a stand next home game, says Sammy. Also, we've had a gifted membership from Daniel. Hope you're doing well, Daniel Thompson. Ollie interim, Enrique in the summer. Attack-minded football with wingers flying forward. Beautiful chaos, says Kyle. Kyle, I like the dream, but I think we're living the nightmare. I mean, you know, if we're going to get Luis Enrique and give him players to, you know, be one of the best teams in the world, why couldn't we do that for Amorim? I mean, I think you're missing the point here. That any idealistic fantasy you've got about Enrique or Tuchel or any other manager that's going to get us back to the top, you do realise that costs money that we don't have. You do realise that for Enrique to come and replicate PSG, you need between $500 million and $1 billion that we just don't have. But I genuinely do feel sad for some of you who think the sacking of Amorim is going to get you a better manager. We're going to get a manager with diluted control who has to work under Wilcox and do as he says. I don't think Enrique's going to do that. I mean, Enrique knows more about brushing his teeth than bloody Wilcox knows about being a director of football. Do you think Luis Enrique's going to work under Jason Wilcox? And that's what you've got to use your brain for now. You can't just go, I'm glad Amorim's sacked, we're going to get Luis Enrique or Zidane. Do you think Zinedine Zidane, the 3 times Champions League winner, is going to come into Man United and work under Jason Wilcox? I mean, that's the hilarity of what some people are throwing out. I don't even know that Gareth Southgate would take the job, and I don't want him to, but I don't even know that Gareth Southgate would come into Manchester United and be told to do by Jason Wilcox. So the next manager's got to be somebody that is happy to sign a contract to say, I've got no control and you're the boss. And I think you're limiting, you know, but there are people out there who are, you know, doing polls and having debates about whether it should be Emery or whether it should be Luis Enrique or Zidane. And it's like, you're having a laugh. Is it comedy hour? Like, what are you talking about? These are all managers that have earned control in the jobs and reputation that they've built. And Man United do not want that. I mean, I wish we were in for somebody like that, but we won't be in for someone like that. Quinster says it will be Gareth Southgate, no doubt. Gary just spent more than 10 minutes talking about the sacking without mentioning Sir Jim Radcliffe, Wilcox, Berrada. What an absolute prat. INEOS shill getting dough, says Rajaf. The United that Neville knew doesn't exist anymore. Look, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I've got absolutely no idea why we've had a whole day of people in the media, some ex-players, most journalists and some fans talking about it was right to sack Amorim because of the results in the football and not acknowledging that that's not why he was sacked. And not acknowledging that he got the sack for calling his bosses shit. You know? That's why it was. And why they won't acknowledge that and why they won't talk about that, I don't know, because it's a fact. It's an absolute fact. For some reason, these people speak with censored mouths. They will not talk about the Glazers anymore. They will not talk about Sir Jim Radcliffe, and they will not talk about Wilcox and Berrada. They just will not do it. In fact, the only person I've heard talk about Jason Wilcox is Troy Deeney on CBS. Troy Deeney's the only one who's spoken about Wilcox and said, who is he? He got relegated with Southampton. So, you know, I don't know. You'd have to ask those people why they're censored. Look, I don't watch other YouTube channels, but apparently some of them are doing the same. So I don't know why it is. I don't know why it is. I know Man United cannot stand the United stand, but it's reciprocal, brother. You know, I don't like you either. I don't want your interviews. I don't want your access. You can shove it up your arse. Maybe when there's new owners, we can rebuild the relationship. But you know what? That's a two-way street. I do not want a relationship with you. You can shove it right up your arse. You're a disgrace. You know, like Amorim, I've got a moral code as well. I don't want to work with people like you. I don't want a relationship with people like you. You make me sick, what you've done to this football club. So maybe some of them do. Maybe some of them have to be careful about what they say because they're desperate for an interview with Delo or something. I really have had it up to here. I think you're an absolute disgrace. And I think if anybody should be begging for interviews, you should be begging the fans. The trust is gone. You've done it all yourself. Didn't really need to say anything. Didn't need to do much. You did it yourself. Who are INEOS and Wilcox to dictate the club's philosophy? They have no connection or understanding of the club and what we stand for. Here, Travis. No sane person will take the job, says Daniel. Mate, they will. They will. They will. They will. I'd take the fucking job. Despite what I've just said there, I'd take the Man United job because it's ego, isn't it? It's I think I can do something, even though it's impossible. The next coach will be a young yes coach with no power. Well done, Sir Jim and the Glazers, says GD7. How are people blindly trusting those useless billionaire owners, says Bart? They are the ones who appointed Amorim and yet cheer for the decision to sack him. What about Big Ange, says Quinster? Well, Big Ange won't go anywhere near it, and I don't think we'd go anywhere near him. Alec Miller says, what about this, Mark? Get ready for all the ex-players to begin glazing in every decision that Fletcher makes, just like they did with Ollie. The criticism Amorim faced will not be the same. I think you make a good point, Alec. And you know what? I don't know what I think about Fletcher, because what I will say is I always liked him as a player and I've got nothing against him. And he has played for the club. But it's not the same as bringing Carrick in or Ollie in because they came in externally. Fletcher is actually a Glazer employee. He's a Glazer boy. You know, he's been at the club for years. He obviously likes the Glazers because he was here before the INEOS and he stayed. Now, I respect someone like Nicky Butt because Nicky Butt was here, saw what was happening and said, I don't want anything to do with this anymore. I'm out. Whereas Fletcher has stayed. So I trust Nicky Butt over Darren Fletcher, and Nicky Butt left. So I don't know what I think about Fletcher other than he's a Glazer guy. So I don't know what I think. I'm going to have to see him in this press conference tomorrow. I'm going to have to see how it lasts. I don't know. At best, we might get another Ollie, but that's scary because they'll give him the job. At worst, you know, it'll be an absolute mistake. But I'll be disappointed with the ex-player community if they give him a free ride like they did Ollie just because he's a mate. Because they didn't give Mourinho a free ride, and we probably had the best manager we've ever had since Sir Alex, and they gave him a hard ride. And they didn't give Ten Hag a free ride. They were on him from the start. And they didn't give Amorim a free ride either. So all I want is consistency in reporting. I don't want favouritism. Nepotism doesn't do anybody any good. So Fletcher should be scrutinised, or Carrick, or whoever gets the job should be scrutinised fairly like everybody else. And I didn't like it. And look, in fairness, Neville was honest. I'm not gonna say anything bad about Solskjaer. I'm not gonna do it. And I went mad about that at the time because I felt it was, you know, favouritism. But you're probably right. It'd be very interesting. Hopefully they won't do that, Alec. That was a different time with Ollie, you know. But we'll have to wait and see. But ultimately, you know what? We're being distracted, aren't we? This is what INEOS want. They want us to go down rabbit holes thinking about something else. They want us to start having a pop at the ex-players because they might back Fletcher. The ex-players haven't fucked Man United up for the last 2 years. You know, the fans that don't want to protest aren't the people that have fucked this football club up. We've got to be careful about being distracted because we're falling into the spin ourselves. The real issue is INEOS, Glazers, Glazers, Wilcox, Berrada, INEOS. That's the focus. And as soon as you start wandering away, they win. They win. Same cycle again. Manager out. Shifts heat away from the top and channels from the drama. We enable it. Amorim, Ollie, Ten Hag, Mourinho. Empty now, says Andreas. Corporate boardroom behaviour. Demand loyalty, says Omar. Ruben said if you can handle the criticisms of Gary Neville, then change it. Neville is a club legend, but why would you use him in a conversation with the manager? It's clear Wilcox asked him to change the formation or leave, says Mega. Well, he did. Watch the interview with Ben Jacobs this afternoon. Wilcox basically said wanted Amorim to get on board with no January signings and a change in formation. And Amorim said no. And fair play to him. I feel sorry for the manager in the next one. There will be no support because the owners and INEOS do not have a clue how to run the club and which players to bring in for any manager club broken, says GD7. I must say this. I will say this because I feel quite blunt. I've got no sympathy for the next manager. I wish them all the best and I hope they do well, but I've got no sympathy for them. You are walking in eyes wide open. And again, I've not heard anybody say this, but whatever Man United manager walks in, if you end up getting chewed up and spat out like everybody else, don't cry, go cry a river, because you are walking in to the most obvious shithole trap in the world. You know, listen to what they said about Ten Hag, listen to what they said about Dan Ashworth, and listen to what they said about Amorim. This is the guy, we trust them, we're backing them, and then they threw them in the bus. So if you're the next manager of Man United, and you come in and you're surprised when they throw you under the bus, you are walking in eyes wide open, and I won't have any sympathy with them this time. Amorim must meet us down the line with the system, his players, spankers, and give us those owners the big finger, says Rafa. Do you think Bruno's definitely gone in the summer? Says definitely. I mean, look, I don't think Bruno, let's not forget, Bruno Fernandes a month ago went in on the owners. Amorim went in on the owners and got the sack. So the owners might not be happy with Bruno, and Bruno's not happy with them. So, and Bruno liked Amorim. So maybe Bruno is going to go in the summer. You wouldn't blame him now, though. The thing about Bruno is he might start playing in the number 10, and I wouldn't sell Bruno as a number 10. I like Bruno as a number 10. So, you know, your Bruno agenda that was never there is probably going to die, because I don't like Bruno in the midfield, and I don't think we'll see Bruno in the midfield now. But if you were Bruno, why would you hang around for another... why would you waste your career, you know? Who in their right mind would want the United job anyway, says Kia. They sacked him for being honest, not for being bad, says Kyle. Would you still sell Bruno now he plays a 10? Well, I think I've answered that, Rory. Sacking Amorim is like employing a top chef and expecting to be part of the bar staff. It's a joke, says TJ. I don't quite agree he was sacked for criticising the board. I think they provoked him, undermined him. Fletcher's kids on the bench took decisions away from him until he snapped and gave them a reason, says Nick P. No, I completely disagree, Nick. I think that's a fantasy. I think that's Jack and Ori. I think you've made that up. That's a conspiracy. I can't buy into that. You know why? There's 15 million reasons that's not true. And it's so obvious they didn't want to sack him. It's so obvious they're not prepared. And you know what, Nick? I understand why you've fallen for it. I read the same article as you, that it started around Christmas and they'd made the decision before the Leeds game. I think this is all spin to distract you. They didn't want to sack Amorim because they've just paid him 15 million quid. In fact, it's about 20 million pounds because there's still compensation to Sporting. So there's no way. They're not even prepared for him to go. They're using Darren Fletcher. They're not prepared for this. So absolutely, completely do not agree with that. I think United have to try and spin it to give themselves some control. But Amorim did this. I think Amorim decided he'd had enough and he was going to call them out because he knew they'd have to sack him or back him. And they sacked him. And you walk away with your reputation intact and 15 million quid. So there's no way that United planned this because there's no preparation. If we planned this, where's the next guy? We didn't. If we planned this, why is the manager walking out with 15 million? You know, it clearly came to a head yesterday and they've had to act because it was untenable. Amorim was sacked for telling the truth, says Christo. If it was results-based, they'd have gone after Everton, says Josh. Exactly. This club is doomed, says Quinster. I think I've done all those. How do we go back to a 4-3-3 with no wingers, says Dan. We can do it. We can. I mean, we'll talk about that more in the future. But we can do it because we can put Ahmad on the right and Boom on the left. We can put Cunha on the left. We don't have a lot of Dorgu, so we don't have a lot of options. But we should be able to do it. I mean, the midfield three will probably be Casemiro, Mainu, and Bruno. Bruno, Ten Hag days again. We've got way too many centre-backs. That's going to be fun. We've got way too many centre-backs, but and we've got a lot of number 10s, but I think we can just about do it. Would you bring Rude back till the end of the season, says Chris? I don't really get why Ruud van Nistelrooy gets such a glow up. He didn't do very well at Leicester. What about Pulisic for manager, says Alex? How would you have handled Amorim's attitude, says Juan? I never would have been in that situation in the first place because I'd have backed him. And I never would have allowed someone like Jason Wilcox to undermine him. Same bullshit from INEOS, says Ugg. Yes, the results weren't good, but it was clear the squad never matched Amorim's style and intensity. INEOS knew this when hiring him, but yet decided to not back him in the market. It's pathetic. It's a sad and ridiculous state of affairs when you analyse it. I was sat there with a coffee after the show this morning, and I had a pen and paper, and I started with November, and I went to where we are today, which is only basically 12, 13 months. And I just sort of went like, what an absolute disaster from INEOS. I was just like, what an absolute joke. Manager comes in with a style of play we don't play and clearly needs backing. We sack him 13 months later and we don't give him even half of what he needed. And look, he's gone. Forget Amorim. But when you look at INEOS and what they did, you go, you really are clueless, aren't you? You really have embarrassed yourself on a major scale. I mean, look, I've had friends who don't support Man United messaging me going, you get past the laughing emojis, I'm sure you've all seen them. And then the common theme is, seriously though, your club is fucking shit, isn't it? It's an embarrassment. And I'm like, yeah, welcome to the reality. We are actually embarrassing. We actually have got people in charge who I genuinely would say you could get a 13-year-old in charge of this football club and they would do better. As long as they were a Man United fan, you know? And Sir Jim's meant to be a lifelong Man United fan as well, which I cannot and never have agreed with. I don't know how he can be a lifelong Man United fan and get it so wrong so regularly. I mean, what about him was a lifelong Man United fan? He doesn't seem to understand anything about the football club at all. He doesn't seem to understand anything about football. Big Sam says it's not a head coach role anymore. It's a position called scapegoat. The most successful manager was exactly that, a manager. Fletcher has no experience. Other managers will have him on toast with tactics. Who is his coaching team? No plan, no ideas by INEOS, says Dan. Bonnie Blue's got more integrity than Glinios, says 23 Muggy. Look, if I was Darren Fletcher, this is what I would do. I would say we're going to play a 4-3-3 because you've done it before. We're abandoning the 3-4-3 because you can't do that. We're going to go back to a basic 4-3-3. We're going to play a deep line. I'm thinking Harry Maguire and Victor Lindelof days. I want my full-backs to be compact with my centre-backs so that we're not conceding goals. We're going to play a deeper line. We're going to put 2 midfielders in front of the back 4. Bruno, you're going to be the number 10, close to them. And when we get the ball, we want to hit it long and run after it and try and exploit the space. I'm thinking Ollie ball from a few years ago. And that's what I would do if I was Darren Fletcher. I would just go 4-3-3, compact back 6, counter with speed. Bruno will love it. That might get us some results. It's basic. You know, bloody John the twat, my former neighbour, could coach this. So that's what I would do. Just go back to basics. And I'm sure Darren Fletcher can do that. Enzo Maresca sacked a week ago with his contacts to United, big wigs. Then Amorim sacked to make way for him. Watch this space, as Kana. Look, I don't know whether it's just me. I saw Nicky Butt and Paul Scholes do a little TikTok-y thing about managers. Fair play to them both. They said Southgate no very quickly, but they both said no to Maresca. I'm on board with that. I don't get the Maresca thing. I think that I respect what he did at Leicester and respect what he did at Chelsea, but he's never been a manager that I've gone, ooh, Maresca. I've never, you know, Pochettino, I get it. Tuchel, I get it. Conte, I get it. Maresca, I just don't get it. I don't get it. I know he won the Club World Cup, but they were in a title race last Christmas and they bottled it. And they were in a title race this year and they bottled it. And he's had a hell of a lot of money. A hell of a lot of money. I don't think he's a bad manager. I'm not saying he's shit, but I don't get why he's top of Man United's list. I really don't. Apart from nepotism and relationships with Wilcox and Berrada from Man City, maybe. We should have listened to Ashworth, says Keel. I'd listen to Ashworth if I know what he said. Really hope Amorim gets the City job and destroys United for the next 10 years, says Sticky Sausage. I mean, I don't want him... I mean, when all's said and done, we're still United fans. I don't like being miserable, but I understand what you mean. Is it coincident that Mainoo's back in training, says Owen? I think Mainoo was due back anyway. I mean, look, he's got more motivation to come back. We're going to play a midfield 3, and we need him. I think the best thing for us is to get relegated, to get rid of everybody, says Exa. I don't think they would go. You know, if we got relegated, it's 46 games instead of 38. We'll still have 75,000 fans turn up, and we'll win every week. So I don't think they would go. Just release a kit that looks like something from the 90s, make a load of money off that, we'll be fine. Alguero, welcome to the Members Club. I would sell my soul to the Saudis or the Qataris to buy United and get the board out of our club, says Puff. You know what I would love? You know what? I think if we want these owners out, you can talk about protests, you can talk about getting games cancelled. You basically need somebody who cares about this club and has got the money to walk in and say, I'm not taking no for an answer, I want it. And then those people get people on board, they tap into fan groups, they put money into fan groups, and we go for it. You know, somebody said this to me a few months ago, and it does make sense. But you need that person to do it. You need somebody with the pockets to say, I'm not taking no for an answer. I want Man United, and I want the debt gone, and I want to take them back to the top. And I tell you what, show you how serious I am. Man United Supporters Trust, Red Army, 58, you have chats with them, you know, maybe us as well. And you basically say, look, you know, this is what we're going to do. We want you on board, and we're going to put money into it. We want this done. And what you need, we'll give you. And we want you to be with us from now until the point they're out. It's very, very difficult for an organisation like the 58 to remove the Glazers when ultimately they're just protesting and they're trying to get people to stay out the ground. But they don't have the finances to actually take over. There's got to be a viable option. We've never really had that. I think the Red Knights were hopefully going to be like that, but that's what you need. And you know what? I think what's this coming in? Romano Bomber. Let's have a look. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has shown interest in taking Man United job as a caretaker manager regardless of contract length. Man United taking their time to assess candidates for the job. Fletcher will be interim. You know what? I love Solskjaer. There's no part of me that won't love Solskjaer forever. But it's like taking a girlfriend back, or a boyfriend, you know, we are a diverse community, who you broke up with for a reason because they weren't quite good enough. And, you know, he's not really done anything since he left. And he got sacked for a reason. It would be... I'd be stunned if they did that. You know, I appreciate Ollie for wanting it. I understand why he'd want it. I don't even think the class of 92 ex-player brigade would want Ollie back. I don't think anybody really wants Ollie back. I don't think that's the way to go. I really don't, because... all that song is already there. If he came back and we did well, Rio's there. You know, Ollie's at the wheels there. We just can't do that. You know, we just can't do that. It doesn't mean we won't, though. JD says, the issue for me is to what extent is a team's success dependent on the quality of their players versus the quality of their manager? Feels like you could portion blame in that aspect as well, says JD. Well, you know, it's not been spoken about enough. It's not been spoken about a lot today, but it still stands as a very good point. Regardless of the manager, there are players there that, you know, have... I mean, somebody said it about Maguire today. He said thank you to so many sacked managers. He said thank you to more sacked managers than he's won trophies at Man United, which I don't know whether is technically correct. But, you know, there's a lot of players there that have sacked a lot of managers, inadvertently or purposely, whatever. There's a lot of failure at that football club, and every manager walks in and it's still there. So whoever comes in, that's a big problem. I think last summer decisions of Amorim keeping Bruno probably cost him his job, since the board also wanted to sell him, says Afak. Axia says, I'm sick of this. Ten Hag wanted year 3. He was building a project. Amorim had a very unique project and we didn't even give him a full year. How can we get best in class when the ones Ron's running the club are shit, says Stephen. And get ready for all of the ex-players to begin glazing any and every decision that Fletcher made, just like they did with Ollie, says Alec. Which new signings and young players will be impacted, do you think, says Jaffa. I think Sesko might find himself out of the team because if I'm an interim, I'm not using him. That doesn't mean Fletcher won't, but I think, honestly, if I was an interim, I'm chasing results. I'm going to go Mbermo up front. I'm going to put Ahmad on the right. I'm going to put Cunha on the left and Bruno at 10. I'm going to get as much experience in that front four as I can. I can't use learner drivers. I'm going to put Luke Shaw at left back. I'm going to put Mazraoui at right back. I'm going to play De Ligt and Martinez at centre back, and I'm going to play Casemiro and, well, Mainu in the midfield. There's no place for Yoro. There's no place for Heaven. There's no place for Sesko. So I think that the younger players are probably going to be jettisoned for experience now, because we're not. Amorim was balancing both project and results. As an interim, you're just chasing results, which is why interims can do quite well in the short term, because it's short term. I mean, you tell me an interim manager that's ever achieved anything. I think Tim Sherwood at Spurs did well in the short term and then was gone in the long term. Obviously, we had Ollie. An interim manager will chase results. And in the short term, that does well. But in the long term, what's the strategy? What's the vision? PRV, performance, results, vision. You know, we'll go results. We'll go for results. I see that strategic review they did last year paid off. Absolute charlatans, says Fairway 5. Beth this afternoon. Mainu is Man United. Amorim got Sesko. He was backed. Amorim is just as guilty as INEOS. Number 3 at the back. I don't mind Glasner. Well, let me break that down. Glasner is a 3-4-3 coach. So number 3, no 3 at the back. I don't mind Glasner. Well, Glasner plays 3 at the back. Amorim is just as guilty as INEOS. Don't know what the context of that is. Last time I checked, Amorim hadn't got into bed with the Glazers, so I think that's a big step. Amorim got Sesko. He was backed. Amorim didn't want Sesko. Ben Jacobs said that, and many other people have said that. Mainu is Man United. Well, I agree with that. I want Mainu to be given an opportunity before he walks out the door. I haven't got a problem with that at all. So, look, I don't agree with everything if that's what Beth said, but that's what it's all about. But Mainu is a topic that I definitely agree with as well. I think we've got to give him a chance. Look, he's going to have a lot of scrutiny on him now. Of course he is. But, everyone's entitled to their opinion. Look, I would have given Amorim till the end of the season. He's not been sacked on results. He's been sacked because he called out the owners. Some of you wanted Amorim sacked and you don't care how it happened. I respect that. Southgate's a better politician than Wilcox. It's why he was England manager for so long, and that is why he won't be United manager, says Emily Derry. In all seriousness, field for Delo, time for Tesco, pal, says Evan. Neville, the INEOS rent boy, says Dave. Glinios are like herpes. No matter what we do, they keep coming back, says Irfan. INEOS and the Glazers are clowns who have the emotional maturity of a 12-year-old. They had no reason to sack him today, and they used the press conference as an excuse, says Jalen. Something sinister about Darren Fletcher. He's been a jobs for the boys guy for years, and now both of his sons are on our bench. How is that Man United manager? I want Fabregas, says Joshua. Quick one. Who's going to be the coaching staff now, says Alex. It's a fair point. We need to recruit one because we haven't really got any decent ones now. Look, I don't like the anti comments about Beth because I don't think she said it in that context, and we can all have different opinions. And also, we have to be very careful about going after Gary Neville or other presenters or whatever you want to do, because you're just being distracted from the real issue, which is the god-awful job these owners are doing to the football club and the poison it's infecting in. There's only one set of people responsible for where Man United are, and it ain't the players, and it ain't the managers, and it ain't the fans, it's the owners. There is a portion of blame that even us, the fans, have to take, and certainly the managers have to take. I mean, I saw a picture that Romano put out today of all the managers we've sacked. It's depressing. There's a big clutch of them. When you think about it, there's David Moyes, there's Louis van Gaal, there's Jose Mourinho, there's Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, there's Erik ten Hag, there's Ruben Amorim, there's Ralf Rangnick. I don't think I've left anyone permanent out. I mean, that's a collection of people that have all been thrown on the scrap heap, who actually none of them was properly backed. I know they had signings, but Sesko cost 67 million. It wasn't Amorim's choice. So that's not backing. And I think this naivety needs to be called out. It's not backing a manager to spend money on them. That's not backing a manager. Oh, he's had £300 million. He's had £250 million. That's not backing a manager. At Christmas, if you wanted those bloody Apple soundproof headphones that cost about 400 quid, but you get a load of shit that costs 400 quid, that's not getting what you wanted, is it? That's just having 400 quid of shit spent on you. So I think that needs to stop as well. I heard it with Ten Hag, I heard it with Ole, I heard it with Mourinho, and I've heard it with Amorim. You can't say he wasn't backed. They spent £250 million on him. Well, I can, and I just did. What do you mean? Well, he didn't want Sesko. He factually didn't want Sesko. So take that £70 million straight away off. Dorgu, £30 million. Well, he didn't want Dorgu. He wanted Mendes. We all know that. Now, it might have been unrealistic, but there's a big difference between Mendes and a 20-year-old from Lecce who needs to be developed. So, and the same can be applied to Mourinho and Ole and Ten Hag. You can't just take the value of the transfers they had and say that they were backed. It's all about whether they wanted those players. And certainly, in the case of Amorim, Ten Hag and Mourinho and Ole, money was spent on players they didn't want. Ole didn't want Van der Beek. There's one straight away. So, that you can't say they've been backed just because money's been spent. Appoint Pingu as our coach. That's INEOS level of coach, says Mike. Amorim was the right manager at the wrong time. Shame how it ended. We need to get rid of the board ASAP. The thing I think is sad about Amorim is even he said himself, I might not be the guy that wins the Premier League with Man United, but I want to be the guy that helps him on that journey. The guy before the guy. Sadly, he's not even going to be that. Because we're in a worse position now than we were than when he came in. And whilst he has to take some responsibility, the vast majority of that goes back to the people we're talking about mostly. So Jim said in his interview with Neville, he supported Amorim kicking Rashford out of the club, but say a bad word about Berrada and Wilcox, and he doesn't support that one. Absolute hypocrite, says Alex. They're company men, aren't they? You can't do anything about them. Man United needs a leadership overall. I mean, I'll be honest with you. When it comes to Jason Wilcox, I don't even get it. I don't get it. I don't know what the history between Wilcox and Sir Jim is. The guy was a youth team coach at Man City and spent 1 year at Southampton in the Championship as a sporting director. And now he's wielding the power at Man United and Sir Jim's backing him. I mean, he hasn't got a CV. He hasn't got any pedigree. And Sir Jim is trusting him over a coach that's managed in the Champions League and, has a far better pedigree. It's wild to me. And as for Berrada, I mean, I think I could be COO at Man City. I mean, it's not that difficult, is it? They're a very rich club who go and get best in class. Man United need an leadership overhaul, pairing a Rangnick-style tactic visionary as football director with Solskjaer as technical director to bridge club heritage and modern operations. The thing is, Vads, we could go back to what we've already got and build a better structure than what we have now. Because Ralf Rangnick would be the dream sporting director and then take your pick on your manager that you want to work with him. Whether it's Amorim, Ten Hag, Jose, Ole, whatever. We've already had the dream sporting director and we missed the boat on it. I mean, Rangnick was the perfect sporting director and we messed it up. What do you think of the people that are giving up on Glazers out and caving in for what they're doing because they think they will never leave? Well, they're basically conceding that we're going to be messed around for a very long time. Why won't Neville or Carragher go for the job? They're quick to slate but won't step up to the plate. Well, they're pundits, Wesley. They're allowed to say what they think as much as me and you are. Would you take Ole with a guarantee left in the summer? Says Matthew. No. Can't help but think this will all be forgotten about this time next week. Mate, if we beat Burnley, I said this morning, right? Prepare yourselves, right? Because the fan base is going to get very toxic. The infighting is going to start. At the moment, we're all united behind the real problem, which is the board and Wilcox and etc. The minute we start winning games under Fletcher, the disintegration will stop. The spin's not going to stop. They're going to keep spinning bad stories about Amorim. They're going to keep spinning positive about themselves, and the gullible people will start to swallow it. And I guarantee you, in a week or two, if you say anything bad about INEOS, you'll be the problem. You'll be the moaner, just the same as I was over Christmas. So I'm totally prepared for that cycle because I've seen it before. You know, the initial outrage will subside and dilute with, you know, another fake project and, you know, a fan base that feeds off each other. It's definitely going to happen. Fantastic show tonight. Don't forget to treat yourself with 50% off on a HelloFresh box and 20% for the next 3 months. The code is 50United. The link is in the description. Scan the QR code. Thanks for all the likes tonight. We've nearly hit 3,000 likes. You're absolutely fantastic. I am back with you on the 10 o'clock show tomorrow. I just want to say a big thank you to you. I think without you, this would have been a very, very difficult day today. To be able to go live and interact with people, even if we don't agree, it's therapy, because this club means so much to us and it's a mess and there is no way out of it. There is no solution. There is no positivity. We've been lied to. There is no trust. There is no reason for optimism at all, apart from we can talk to each other. So thank you to all of you. Stay safe, everybody, and I will speak to you all later on. Take care. Thanks for watching.